Harrington. I am your host. Today, we're going to talk about when your partner's not growing and you are, and you're feeling that disconnect in your relationship, and you're not really sure how to navigate that, how to ask for what you want, and also how to feel seen and heard in that relationship, and also how to reconcile the fact that you're changing and they're not. That's a really big gap to reconcile. And I've been there a couple of times. And someone asked me this question in my DMs a couple of weeks ago. And she specifically said, I felt that I was changing and he wasn't. And I decided to work on myself as my response to that. And she's like, because I've been working on myself and I've been doing all this personal development and he's not, now there's even more of a disconnect. And I'm really unhappy with the relationship, with who he is, all of this stuff. Right now, first of all, I gave her a huge me too, because I've been there and I've shared this before on our podcast. I've been there a couple of times. Once was when I was big in network marketing. I've been doing personal development. I was really growing, working on myself, and I was starting to pivot to my own brand. And I was like, hey, kind of a little bit of a wake up call here. We need to get some help. I can't keep doing this. We're not going to be able to relate to each other, all of this stuff. And then we hit another rock bottom. Well, actually, I backed that up. Okay, hold on. I was building my own brand and I was like, hey, this isn't going to work. We have to get a marriage coach, whatever, because we're not going to end up together. I'm changing, I'm growing, you're not, we're not going to end up in the same place. And something has to change because I was super unhappy. And so I kind of gave him this ultimatum, right? You better start working on things with me or I'm out type thing. And then we kind of hit that moment again after we had been working with our marriage coach. And I still was like, yeah, things just still aren't changing enough for me quickly enough. And I'm out again type thing. And that's when we officially ended things. We had a separating ceremony, all of this stuff. And then a month later is when he asked me out again and we ended up building something new. And that was 2 years ago. So here's what I told her. What I know now and who I am now, I would handle those situations very differently. Before, I handled them in a very masculine way where I gave an ultimatum and I was like, if you don't change and if you don't start stepping up, then I'm out. And while it wasn't a true ultimatum, because I did tell him, I was like, hey, this is just your choice. What I need to know, which direction you want to go with your life, because dependent on the direction you're going will depend on if I'm going with you, because I don't know if we're going to the same place. So it wasn't you better change or I'm out. However, I was very clear, hey, things have to start shifting, and I want to be with someone who's going to do X, Y, and Z. And if you're not willing to, then I'm out. Kind of still an ultimatum, right? Even though it was hey, you get to make this choice. So it was a very masculine approach. It was not a feminine approach. And looking back now, it totally was not loving. It was not empathetic. It was not kind. It was not compassionate. It was not understanding. And it was all focused on who they were not being and what I was not getting in the relationship and how much they were, for lack of a better term, effing up, as opposed to being so grateful for who they were and so appreciative of who they were and really pouring into them. Because at that point in time, I wasn't pouring into him. I wasn't pouring into our relationship. I wasn't showing up and initiating all these things in our relationship, or date nights, or finding things for us to go do together, or ways to grow together, or things like that. I was actually just focused on me. I was growing, sure, because I was sending myself to these conferences and I was, getting myself these books and I was doing all this stuff alone, and I was not actually including him or asking him or inviting him. And there was a degree where I was, but because I was so focused on this is the best thing since sliced bread, personal development is the best thing since sliced bread, and working on myself and working through my issues is the best thing since sliced bread. And I was so convinced that I was somehow a better person because I was doing these things. All I saw when I looked at him was who he wasn't and what he wasn't doing, which is extremely unattractive for him because he didn't marry me for me to fix him. And I was literally looking at him Like I needed to fix him. Like he was broken, like he wasn't enough, like he was flawed, like he was missing all these things that I quote unquote deserved. And if I look at that from his perspective and I go, how would you have liked it if he was doing that to you? Would you have liked it if he looked at you and all he saw was where you weren't measuring up and all he saw was where you weren't enough and all he treated you as was someone that was like, come on, get your shit together. Because there were plenty of times where he could have. My husband has had his fair share of issues in our relationship. We've talked about that on this podcast. However, he has never one time belittled me. He has never made fun of me. He has never, ever said anything negative about my appearance, ever, no matter what. He has never acted like I'm repulsive. He's never said I'm ugly. He has always only ever been affirming of how I look and being attracted to me and all of that. And when I look back at how I responded to him, I wasn't doing the same thing back. In fact, I was doing the opposite and I was vocalizing it to him. I was saying, this isn't enough. You're not enough. I need you to be more. I need you to do more. And in a lot of ways, I was withholding love until he changed. And that didn't mean I was giving the cold shoulder. But what it did mean is that I was not going out of my way to admire him, to affirm him, to respect him, to show him that I respected him in my actions and how I spoke about him to other people and how I honored him in my podcast, in my posts, in talking with other people, right? I was treating him like he was a project that needed to be fixed. And lo and behold, guess how that manifested in our relationship? It felt like a project that needed to be fixed. And I see this so much with clients where they get so fixated on what their person isn't doing and what their person or how their person might be messing up or how their person might not be doing this or doing that, or maybe they're falling short in this regard, that they literally can't be happy at all in their relationship. And if they could literally just let that go and stop trying to control it, stop trying to make them change, stop trying to make them give them a different response, they could be happy in their relationship. It really comes back to you trying to control them. And the less you try to control and the more you just love them for them, the happier you get to be. And I realized over the last couple of years that I missed out on so much love with my husband because I was the one focused on what was lacking instead of focused on what was there. Instead of focused on the cup half full, I saw the cup half empty. And I compared him to everyone and I compared him to all these other guys. And enough was never really going to be enough in that regard. And how would I feel if he was constantly comparing me to other people, other women? Oh my God, that'd be so intimidating and heartbreaking. And why would I trust him if he was doing that? But this is who I was being to him. And because of that, I kept my guard up. I kept my walls up. I projected onto him a lot. And when I was able to let my walls down and say, Joy, you've actually been the one pushing love away. You've been pushing him away because you have been seeing only where he is failing. Instead of recognizing who he's been to you and how he's choosing to show up and love you day after day after day, you've missed out on receiving love. That's not his problem. That's you didn't let yourself receive it. You didn't let yourself just be loved because all you saw was where you needed to fix things. And when you're in fix-it mode, you're not in receiving mode. I think this is an issue for a lot of women. They get stuck in fix-it mode. Everywhere they look, they see something that needs to be done. That's why moms, that whole like thing that went around a few years ago of like when you give a mom a muffin, I don't know if you guys heard of that, but it's like when you give a mom a muffin, she'll end up, seeing this that then also needs to be fixed. And then she'll see the load of laundry. And then when she's in the middle of laundry, remember to go check the microwave. And then when she's checking the microwave, she'll start cleaning the microwave. And then when she's cleaning the microwave, she'll see, right? It's like thing after thing after thing after thing. All we see when we go through our life is what needs to be completed, what needs to be fixed, what needs to be cleaned up, what needs to be checked off the checklist. And that is not conducive for a happy life. That's not conducive for a happy life, because you will carry that into yourself when you look at your image, your body image, that you will carry that into your relationship with your kids and how they need to be different, or how they need to be growing, or how they need to be doing more. You will carry that into your relationship and your marriage. You'll carry that into friendship. You'll carry that into your business. And living in fix it mode is living reactionary as opposed to intentionally leading. Intentionally leading looks like, I have a vision. I'm creating from a vision. I have a vision of who I want to be. And so therefore, based on who I want to be, I'm going to respond to my husband this way. I have a vision of the relationship that I want to have. So based on that relationship, I'm going to show up in my marriage this way. You don't get there by accident. And you definitely don't get there with constantly just trying to fix things. You have to be in creative mode. You have to be creating from a vision instead of fixing old stuff that you don't want anymore. Old stuff in your relationship, old stuff in your life, old stuff within you. Stop focusing on what needs to be fixed and start focusing on what you want to create. And this is where it's the difference between looking at what's broken in me or what's broken in him or what needs to be changed or what needs to be better, and instead go, where are we going? Where do I want to go? What am I creating from? And how am I stepping into that person today? How am I going to be that person today? How am I going to show up in my relationship as that person today? And then just be that person. Show up from that person. We're not looking at what needs to be fixed. We're looking at what we want to create. And we're being intentional in creating that by our actions, our words, our emotions, how we're showing up, how we're loving. If I had just loved him for him, if I had been appreciative of who he was, and like truly genuinely appreciative of who he was with zero expectations for him to change, he probably would have changed a long time ago. But when people feel pressure, like you are telling them they need to do something, especially masculine men, they buck that. They don't like that. Because guess what? That is not conditional love. That is conditional love. That's not unconditional love. No one changes under conditional love. People change with unconditional love when they feel totally accepted, admired, respected enough, and they hear you speaking life over them, speaking as if they were already that person. They live into that. Kids live into that, right? That's why I say don't title them. Don't say they're behind. Don't say they're a troublemaker. Don't give them labels. Only ever give them positive labels, because they will live up to what you expect. So will your husband. So will your husband. And I would say, I'm going to go out on a limb here, that 90 to 95% of your problems in your marriage is you zoning in on seeing him as a project that needs to be fixed instead of loving and accepting him for him and letting go of trying to control or change him. Let go. Stop trying to change him. You don't actually want to control him. That's not attractive to a feminine. So literally stop seeing him through this lens of everything he's not doing and start seeing him through the eyes of Christ. Start seeing him through eyes of gratitude. This man committed to you. He has been there day after day after day. He's never left. Through hard things. Everyone's been through hard things. I don't care who you are. Be grateful for that. Find whatever you can to be grateful for. And repent. Repent of your criticism. Your constant criticism. That is not your authentic voice. That is not your authentic truth. Constant criticism is shame and judgment. That comes from Satan. That comes from demons. That comes from the dark kingdom. That is not the voice of God. And you are constantly being a mouthpiece for someone in all of your interactions, including with your husband? Are you being the mouthpiece for God or the mouthpiece for darkness? Speak life. Life looks like respect, honor, admiration, gratitude. We can do so much better than we have done. Women have been struck with a spirit of criticism, and it is not attractive, and it is not of God. And we get to repent, we get to change our mind, we get to do something different. Here's the beautiful thing. When you start showing acceptance and love and less criticism and judgment to him, you will also do the same thing for yourself. The more you can do it for you, the more you can do it for other people. The more you can tell yourself, it's okay. I love and accept all of who I am. I don't need to be better. I don't need to do more. The more you'll be able to look back at him and do the same thing for him and your kids. Your kids will not be drawn to you if you're constantly pointing out where they need to change or grow or do better or whatever. If you're constantly seeing them as someone that needs to be fixed and approaching them, they will also push you away as they grow up. Love people genuinely, no matter what. Accept people genuinely, no matter what. The rest will figure itself out, I promise. Perfect love casts out fear. Perfect love also is where people change. Perfect love is where God gets to come in and let people experience the love and the grace, and then they have the genuine desire to change. Then they actually want to change because they realize what they're being given and they feel safe and they let down and they want to change. I've said this before on this podcast. So my approach to him now, if we went through that, would be to stop fixating on him. Stop fixating on him. Totally focus on me. Love him for him. Do not assume that I'm better than him because I'm doing things that are quote unquote better, or because I'm working on me that makes me so much more better than him. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. That's the spirit of pride. I would stop fixating on him. I would stop buying into the lie that I'm better, or that I'm more important, or that I'm more giving, or whatever it is that I'm telling myself I am because I'm doing all this work on me. Oh my God, I'm such a good person. I'm so much farther than you. No, I'm not. That's the spirit of pride. That's not even true. I would focus on what I wanted to change for me, in me. And then I would literally be so grateful for him and who he is and how he's shown up in this relationship consistently for the last, I don't know, 15, 16 years. We were just counting up the other night that this is our 16th Valentine's together, which is crazy to say. That's a whole other story for the podcast, that first Valentine's being together and a very infamous painting that went down in history, but that's another episode for another time. I would draw him to me with my feminine gifts, which are empathy, love, compassion, seeing his heart, believing in him more than he believes in himself, but not to the point where I think he should change. Believing in him for who he is now. Right? I would use my feminine gifts to make him feel nurtured, make him feel safe, make him feel seen, supported. And I would literally let that blossom our relationship. Instead of going into masculine, where I basically closed down and went, if you don't change, I'm not going to be with you. I don't really love you. I'm not going to love you until you change. I didn't say that in so much words, but actions did. That's not who God is to us. That's not who God calls us to be. God does the opposite for us. So I would go into my feminine superpowers and I would believe that he's enough and that we could have an amazing marriage no matter what, because that is the truth. You're the person that gets to decide if your marriage is amazing right now or not. And guess what? Whatever you decide will be your reality. I would lean into that. And I would trust and pray that God would grow him with me, that we could grow together, that our relationship would blossom. I could ask for those things in a feminine approach, and I probably for sure would. But then I would also just let them go, because the more I try to control or force him or nag him or treat him like a project that needs to be fixed, the further it pushed him away. So stop seeing him as a project that needs to be fixed. He is not any more than you are, and you are not. We are not broken. I don't use that language. We're not broken. We don't need to be fixed. You're healed. You're different. That is your reality. Believe that. Live into that. Stop focusing on the past. Stop focusing on what needs to be fixed or changed, and start living into the reality that God has shown you. It's that simple. It's that simple. Change your focus. Change your focus. I love you. I'll see you back on the show next week. Quick reminder that I'm growing a fully feminine movement with Monat. Monat is an amazing company that I'm partnering with to build residual income. I really don't want to stick with like one-on-one work or trading time for money anymore. I would like to have money coming in regardless of how much I show up in a business and work, as far as like, hopping on one-on-one calls or teaching classes or things like that goes. So I've decided to partner with Monat because they are a completely different approach to this than I've ever experienced before. The company culture is very different. It's very feminine. It feeds your feminine. It lets you show up and have fun. And my word for this year is fun and light and doing what's easy and just letting myself be supported. So I'm over there helping women that want to do the same thing. And if that's you, let's chat on Instagram. It's at joyharrington.ig. Would love to have you join the movement that I'm starting, where I'm really helping women heal this part of them and step into their feminine and allow themselves to receive money and be supported by money, but not have to go chasing it, not have to go chasing sales, not have to be showing up and trading their time that they want to be with their kids for work that they have to be doing. I want them to truly be able to do what they are called to do, and that requires time freedom. All right, I will chat with you on Instagram, and I hope you have a beautiful day.